The Krillian hunting fleet cut through the void like dark daggers, their biomechanical ships pulsing with predatory hunger. Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood Harvest, watching the blue marble of Earth grow larger in the view screen. His four arms flexed with anticipation, razor-sharp claws extending and retracting in an ancient ritual of the hunt. Target analysis complete, Commander. His sensor operator hissed through needle-like teeth. Population, 7 billion sentients. Technology level, primitive. No significant space defenses detected. Vextar's mandibles clicked in amusement. The Krillians had conquered 47 star systems across 3 galactic arms. They were the apex predators of known space, beings who lived only for the thrill of the hunt and the taste of victory. Each conquered world added to their reputation, their legend growing with every species they claimed as prey. Any signs of resistance capability? Vextar asked, though he already knew the answer. These humans were barely capable of reaching their own moon consistently. Their weapons were crude, chemical explosives, and metal projectiles. It would be like hunting infants. Minimal, Commander. Some orbital installations, primitive missile systems. Nothing that could penetrate our bioshields. The sensor operator's voice carried the boredom of a predator facing defenseless prey. The hunting fleet consisted of 12 vessels, each one a living nightmare, crafted from engineered flesh and bone. The Krillians didn't build ships, they grew them. Every surface writhed with organic sensors. Every weapon was an evolved killing organ. The smallest ship in their fleet could level a city. The largest could crack continents. Vextar had been hunting for 3 centuries. He remembered his first kill, a trembling Zelkrian diplomat who begged for mercy in 7 languages. He remembered the sweet satisfaction of watching entire civilizations crumble before Krillian might. The Altarians had lasted 6 months. The crystalline beings of Zirian Prime had managed a year of resistance before their world cities fell. Most species surrendered after seeing what happened to the first few planets. Commander, we're receiving communications from the planet's surface, reported his communications officer. Multiple frequencies, multiple languages. They appear to be attempting to establish contact. Let them speak, Vextar commanded. He enjoyed this part almost as much as the actual hunting. The desperate pleas, the offers of tribute, the promises of submission. It was delicious foreplay to the main event. The bridge filled with crackling voices speaking in dozens of human languages. Through the translation matrix, the meaning became clear: warnings, questions, demand for identification, offers of peaceful contact. Standard prey behavior when faced with superior predators. One voice cut through the chaos, speaking in clear, measured tones. It came from what their sensors identified as the dominant military power on the planet's largest continent. Unknown vessels. This is General Morrison of Earth Defense Command. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves and state your intentions immediately. Vextar's laughter was like grinding metal. Earth Defense Command. As if these primitives could defend anything from a Krillian hunting fleet. Open a channel, he ordered. Time to begin the psychological warfare that softened prey before the kill. The view screen shifted to show a human male in military dress. His face was weathered, his eyes hard, but Vextar could smell the fear through the biochemical sensors. Fear and something else. Something that tickled at the edges of his predatory instincts. Greetings, primitive. Vextar spoke in perfect human English, his voice a rasping whisper that could freeze blood. I am Commander Vextar of the Krillian Hunting Imperium. We have come to claim your world and add your species to our collection. The human's face didn't change. No pleading, no terror, no collapse into despair. Instead, General Morrison leaned forward slightly. I see. And what makes you think we'll allow that? The question was so unexpected that Vextar actually paused. In 3 centuries of conquest, no species had ever asked such a thing. They begged, they bargained, they threatened with weapons they didn't possess, but none had ever simply asked why they should submit. Allow. Vextar's mandibles clicked in dark amusement. Primitive, you misunderstand your situation. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. We have conquered 47 worlds. Your primitive weapons cannot harm us. Your defenses cannot stop us. You will surrender, or you will be hunted to extinction. Those are your only choices. Morrison nodded slowly, as if considering the information. 47 worlds. That's impressive. Tell me, Commander, in all those conquests, have you ever faced a species that fought back effectively? None have been capable of offering meaningful resistance, Vextar replied, though something about the human's calm was beginning to irritate him. We are evolution's perfect killers. Evolution's perfect killers, Morrison repeated. Interesting phrase. We have a saying here on Earth, Commander. When you're the apex predator for too long, you forget what it's like to be prey. The transmission ended abruptly. Vextar stared at the blank screen for a moment, then shook off his confusion. Human bravado, nothing more. He had seen it before in other species. The brave last stand before inevitable defeat. Begin the hunt, he commanded. Standard pattern. Disable their orbital installations first, then start with their major population centers. I want to break their spirit before we begin ground operations. The hunting fleet spread out like a living constellation of death. Their bio-ships began charging their primary weapons, organic cannons that could fire concentrated plasma bursts capable of melting steel and vaporizing concrete. The smaller ships moved toward Earth's orbital installations while the heavy hunters took position over major cities. Firing solutions locked, reported his weapons officer. Beginning assault in 3, 2. The first plasma bursts lanced toward Earth's primitive satellites and space stations. Vextar expected to see them vaporize instantly, clearing the way for the main assault. Instead, his sensor operator began screaming. Commander, the plasma bursts are being deflected. I'm reading massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. Vextar's 4 eyes focused on the tactical display. Impossible. Beams of coherent energy were rising from hidden installations across Earth's surface, intercepting his plasma fire with surgical precision, not just blocking it, but redirecting it harmlessly into space. Impossible, he snarled. Their technology level is primitive. How are they generating that kind of power? His answer came in the form of return fire. Lance-like beams of pure energy erupted from Earth's surface, moving faster than anything in the Krillian arsenal. The first beam struck his lead scout ship, the Bone Ripper, amidships. The bio-ship's organic armor, evolved to resist every known form of energy weapon, simply disappeared. The beam cut through 15 meters of living hull as if it were empty space, severing the ship's central nervous system. The Bone Ripper convulsed once and went dark, drifting dead in space. Evasive maneuvers, Vextar roared, but more beams were already rising from the planet. These humans weren't firing randomly. Each shot was precisely targeted, calculated to maximum effect. Another ship died, then another, as Earth's hidden defense grid revealed itself. Commander, his communications officer's voice was high with panic. I'm detecting massive energy buildups across the planet's surface. Hundreds of installations are coming online. Sir, I don't think these are primitive weapons. More return fire erupted from Earth. But these weren't the surgical strikes of the defense grid. These were massive, brutal attacks that spoke of raw destructive power. Weapons that could crack moons opened fire on the Krillian fleet with mathematical precision. Vextar watched in growing horror as his perfect hunting formation dissolved under the coordinated assault. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning. Ship after ship fell to Earth's guns, their bio-armor useless against weapons that seemed to ignore every law of physics he understood. Sir, his sensor operator's voice cracked with terror. I'm reading new contacts rising from the planet's surface. Multiple ships? No, dozens of ships. Sir, they're launching a counterattack. The view screen shifted to show Earth's surface, and Vextar's blood ran cold. Rising from hidden facilities across every continent came ships unlike anything he had ever seen. Not the elegant biomechanical constructs of the Krillians, but angular, purposeful vessels that radiated menace like heat from a forge. These weren't primitive chemical rockets. These were warships built for one purpose: killing things like him. Full retreat, Vextar ordered, his predatory confidence cracking for the first time in centuries. All ships, fall back to the outer system. We need to reassess. His words were cut off as the human ships reached space. They moved with impossible grace, their acceleration curves defying every assumption the Krillians had made about human technology. And they were fast, faster than anything in the known galaxy. The lead human vessel opened communications. General Morrison's face appeared on the screen again, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him stood figures in military uniforms from various Earth nations, and their expressions were uniformly grim. "Commander Vextar," Morrison said calmly, "you mentioned that your evolution's perfect killers. That's an interesting claim, but I think you've made a fundamental error in your reasoning." What are you?" Vextar gasped as human ships began to surround his fleet with tactical precision that spoke of centuries of military evolution. Morrison smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "We're what happens when evolution's perfect killers spend their entire history fighting each other. You see, Commander, you've been hunting children. We've been hunting monsters." The human ships opened fire. The human weapons defied everything Vextar understood about warfare. While Krillian bioships fired plasma that burned through matter, the human weapons seemed to simply delete their targets from existence. Where the beams touched his ships, matter didn't explode or melt. It vanished, leaving perfectly spherical holes that exposed the void beyond. "Blood Harvest, this is the UES Retribution," came Morrison's voice over the communications array. "Surrender now, and we'll discuss terms for your crew's survival." Vextar's mandibles clicked in rage and disbelief. A primitive species was offering him terms of surrender? The same beings his sensors had identified as barely capable of interplanetary travel mere hours ago? "Return fire," he snarled. "All weapons, maximum power. Show these primitives what happens when they challenge the apex predators of the galaxy." His remaining 8 ships unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons that could glass continents fired in coordinated volleys. Biomissiles that could burrow through planetary cores streaked toward the human fleet. Organic disruptor beams, designed to tear apart molecular bonds, lanced through space. The human response was immediate and terrifying. Their ships didn't dodge the incoming fire, they danced around it. Each vessel moved with precision that suggested perfect knowledge of where every shot would be before it was fired. It was as if they could see the future. "Sir," his tactical officer screamed. "Their movement patterns, they're predicting our fire solutions before we lock them." One of the human ships, a sleek destroyer designated Yamato, spiraled through a cloud of biomissiles without taking a single hit. Its return fire carved the flesh render in half with surgical precision, the Krillian ship's death scream echoing through the bioneural network that connected the fleet. Vextar had fought across 47 star systems. He had seen every form of space combat known to galactic civilization. But this wasn't combat, this was execution. The humans moved like they had been born in the void, their ships extensions of their will rather than mere vessels. "Commander," his communications officer whispered, "I'm intercepting human communications." "Sir, they're coordinating this entire battle in real time. Every ship knows exactly where every other ship is at all times." That was impossible. Even the Krillians, with their bioneural network linking ship consciousness, couldn't achieve that level of coordination. The processing power required would need quantum computers the size of moons. Another Krillian ship died. Then another. The humans weren't just defeating them. They were systematically dismantling the hunting fleet with methodical precision. Each attack targeted critical systems, leaving the bioships crippled but intact, their crews trapped in dying vessels. "Sir," the sensor operator's voice cracked with terror. "I'm detecting new signatures from the inner system. More human ships, dozens of them." The tactical display updated to show reinforcements streaming from deeper in Earth's solar system. ships rising from hidden bases on Mars, others emerging from asteroid installations that his scouts had somehow missed. Even more appeared from the shadow of the system's gas giant, where they had been waiting in perfect silence. "How many ships do they have?" Vextar demanded. "I count over 200 vessels, sir. And they're all military. Sir, this entire system is one massive fortress." The lead human ship, Retribution, moved closer. Its weapons remained trained on the blood harvest, but it didn't fire. Morrison's voice came over the comm again. "Commander Vextar, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about what kind of species you've encountered. Let me clarify our situation for you." A holographic display appeared between the two ships, showing Earth in detail. But it wasn't the primitive world the Krillians had expected. Cities glowed with energy networks that dwarfed anything in known space. Orbital rings circled the planet, connected by space elevators that reached into the void. The moon showed signs of massive industrial development, its far side carved into geometric patterns that spoke of mega-engineering. "You see, Commander, we've been expecting visitors like you for quite some time. When our deep space sensors detected your approach 6 months ago, we made certain preparations." 6 months. The humans had been tracking the hunting fleet for 6 months, across interstellar distances that should have been impossible for their technology level to detect. "Impossible," Vextar whispered. "Our stealth biohulls are undetectable. No known sensor technology can track us across interstellar space." Morrison's smile was cold. "Commander, you keep using words like impossible and unknown. I think you need to expand your definition of known space. You see, while you've been busy hunting defenseless civilizations, we've been preparing for something much more dangerous." The holographic display shifted, showing star charts that made Vextar's blood freeze. It wasn't just Earth's solar system. The humans had mapped everything. Krillian bases, hunting routes, conquered worlds, even a location of the Krillian homeworld itself. "Ow!" Vextar could barely speak. "How do we know so much about you?" Morrison asked. "Because you aren't the first galactic threat we've encountered. 30 years ago, we made contact with refugees from some of your hunting expeditions, survivors who escaped to warn others." The display showed new images: Altarian crystal beings, Zelkrian scholars, members of dozens of species that the Krillians had supposedly hunted to extinction. All of them alive. All of them living on Earth or human-controlled worlds. "You see, Commander, while you were congratulating yourselves on being perfect predators, you were actually being very sloppy hunters. Survivors escaped. They found us. They told us about you. And we spent 30 years preparing for your arrival." Another human ship, the Enterprise, glided past the bridge viewport. Vextar could see its crew through the transparent aluminum windows. Humans, yes, but not just humans. Altarian crystal beings worked alongside them. Zelkrian scholars operated sensor stations. Dozens of species that should have been extinct stood united against their former hunters. "You united our prey species," Vextar realized with growing horror. "We liberated enslaved populations and offered them citizenship," Morrison corrected. "Turns out, when you give people hope instead of hunting them for sport, they're quite willing to help you build a better galaxy." The blood harvest shuddered as human ships moved into perfect formation around it. Vextar could see their weapons charging, but they didn't fire. They were waiting. "What do you want?" Vextar asked, his predatory arrogance finally cracking completely. "Simple," Morrison replied. "Information. You're going to tell us the location of every Krillian base, every hunting fleet, every conquered world. You're going to give us complete intelligence on your military capabilities and deployment patterns. And if I refuse?" Morrison's expression didn't change. "Then we'll extract the information from your bioship's neural networks." Posthumously, Vextar looked around his bridge. His crew, once proud apex predators, now cowered at their stations. Half his fleet was dead or dying. The other half was trapped by human ships that moved like living things and fired weapons that deleted matter from existence. "You don't understand," he said desperately. "There are over 300 Krillian hunting fleets spread across the galaxy. thousands of ships, millions of warriors. Even if you defeat us here, you cannot stand against the entire Imperium. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. You're probably right. We can't fight the entire Krillian Imperium. He paused, and his smile became predatory. That's why we're not going to fight them. We're going to hunt them. The words sent ice through Vextar's veins. The way Morrison said, hunt, carried implications that made the Krillian commander's evolutionary instincts scream danger warnings. What do you mean? I mean, Commander, that while you've been busy being apex predators, humanity has been perfecting the art of warfare for 10,000 years. We've fought each other across every continent, in every environment, with every weapon imaginable. We've developed strategies and tactics that would give your military theorists nightmares. The holographic display shifted again, showing human historical battles. Ancient warriors with bronze weapons, medieval knights, industrial age armies, modern soldiers with advanced technology. But it wasn't just the progression of weapons that was terrifying, it was the scale. Hundreds of millions of humans had died in conflicts spanning millennia, each war teaching the survivors how to fight more effectively. But more importantly, Morrison continued, we learned something that you apex predators never had to learn. We learned how to coordinate, how to sacrifice for each other, how to fight not just as individuals, but as a species with a single purpose. Another human ship moved into position, its designation Red Hood, and its weapons arrays were unlike anything in the Krillian arsenal. Not bioweapons or energy beams, but something that registered as pure mathematics given physical form. The survivors you left behind taught us about your biology, your technology, your psychology. We've spent 3 decades developing countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize Krillian advantages. Your bioships can regenerate damage, so we built weapons that prevent regeneration. Your neural networks give you tactical coordination, so we developed quantum computing systems that can outthink your entire fleet simultaneously. Vextar realized with mounting terror that everything the Krillians considered evolutionary advantages had been turned against them. Their bioarmor was useless against human weapons. Their neural networks were overwhelmed by human coordination systems. Their predatory psychology made them predictable to beings who had studied warfare as a science. But most importantly, Morrison said, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried perfect menace, you taught us something we never knew about ourselves. You showed us what we look like from the outside, and we decided we didn't like it. The human fleet began to tighten its formation. Dozens of ships moved with perfect synchronization, their weapons trained on the remaining Krillian vessels. So here's what's going to happen, Commander. You're going to surrender. You're going to give us complete intelligence on the Krillian Imperium. And then you're going to help us liberate every world you've ever conquered. And if I refuse? Morrison's smile disappeared entirely. Then you'll discover what happens when evolution's perfect killers encounter something that evolution never intended to create. A species that perfected warfare, not for survival, but for the protection of others. The human ships opened their weapon ports, and Vextar saw his death approaching with mathematical certainty. 6 months later, Vextar stood on the bridge of the Retribution as it dropped out of hyperspace above Krillio's prime, the Krillian homeworld. The irony wasn't lost on him. He who had once commanded hunting fleets was now helping to plan the largest liberation operation in galactic history. The Krillian homeworld spread before them like a cancer across space. Biomechanical installations orbited the planet in writhing configurations. Breeding worlds where new hunting ships grew in massive organic foundries. Command centers that coordinated the activities of 300 hunting fleets across 47 conquered star systems. All of it about to come to an end. Target analysis complete, reported Lieutenant Sarah Chun, the human tactical officer who had replaced his former crew. We count approximately 800 vessels in system, including 12 prime-class bio-dreadnoughts. Vextar watched his former species' mighty fleet with eyes that now saw their weaknesses instead of their strengths. After 6 months working with human military analysts, he understood exactly how primitive Krillian tactics actually were. They had become so accustomed to easy victories over defenseless prey that they had never developed real military doctrine. "Admiral Morrison," he said formally, "the Imperium's response pattern will be predictable. They'll deploy in hunting formation, attempting to surround and isolate individual human ships for concentrated attack." Morrison nodded from his command chair. Around him, the bridge operated with the quiet efficiency that had taken Vextar months to appreciate. Humans didn't need bioneural networks to coordinate perfectly. They achieved it through training, discipline, and something the Krillians had never possessed: absolute trust in each other. "Fleet status report," Morrison commanded. "Terra Fleet Alpha is in position," came the reply from Admiral Chun aboard the Enterprise. 120 vessels ready for engagement. "Mars Fleet Beta standing by," reported Admiral Petrosky from the Yamato. 95 ships in formation. "Centauri Liberation Fleet reports ready," added Admiral Exterai, one of the Altarian crystal beings who now commanded human ships. 60 vessels crewed by Liberation volunteers. Vextar felt a chill at those numbers. Nearly 300 human ships, many crewed by former victims of Krillian hunting expeditions. The Imperium's 800 vessels seemed impressive until you realized that human military doctrine emphasized quality over quantity. Each human ship carried firepower equivalent to 5 Krillian bio ships, operated by crews who had been training for this moment for over 2 years. "Begin Phase 1, Morrison ordered. The human fleet didn't charge forward like traditional attackers. Instead, they dispersed into smaller formations that moved with surgical precision toward specific targets. This wasn't the wild aggression of apex predators. It was the calculated assault of military professionals who had studied their enemy's weaknesses for years. "Sir," Vextar said quietly, "the Imperium Council is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're calling for me to respond." Morrison nodded. "Put them through. Let them see what their former hunter has become." The main screen activated to show the Imperium Council chambers. 5 ancient Krillians, each one a legend among their people, stared out from biomechanical thrones that pulsed with organic technology. At their center sat High Predator Zekmon, the oldest and most successful hunter in Krillian history. "Vextar," Zekmon's voice carried the authority of 3 centuries of perfect victory. "You dare approach the sacred hunting grounds with primitive slaves? Have you lost your mind?" Vextar straightened, meeting his former leader's gaze without flinching. 6 months ago, he would have prostrated himself before the High Predator. Now, after seeing what the galaxy looked like through the eyes of the hunted rather than the hunters, he felt only disgust. "High Predator," he said formally, "I bring terms for the immediate surrender of the Krillian Imperium and the liberation of all conquered worlds." The council chambers erupted in clicking laughter. Zekmon's mandibles spread in an expression of predatory amusement. "Terms? From a species that hasn't even left their birth system? Vextar, you have been corrupted by proximity to prey. When we finish destroying these pathetic humans, you will face judgment for your betrayal." Morrison stepped into view of the camera. "High Predator Zekmon, I am Admiral Morrison of the Terran Defense Force. We offer you one chance to surrender peacefully and begin the process of making reparations to your victims. Zekmoes lutter intensifie. Admiral Morrison, you command perhaps 300 primitive vessels. We have 800 bioships in this system alone, and thousands more across the galaxy. What makes you think you can threaten us?" Morrison's expression didn't change. "Because we've spent the last 6 months systematically destroying every Krillian hunting fleet in known space." The silence that followed was absolute. Zekmon's mandibles slowly closed, his 4 eyes focusing on Morrison with new attention. "Impossible," he whispered. "Vextar," Morrison said calmly, "please show the High Predator our operational reports." The display shifted to show tactical summaries from across the galaxy. Fleet after fleet of Krillian hunters had been ambushed, surrounded, and either destroyed or captured by coordinated human forces. The mathematics were inexorable. In 6 months of systematic operations, humanity had eliminated over 2/3 of the Krillian Imperium's military strength. 300 fleets, Vextar said quietly. All of them gone. Some fought and were destroyed. Others surrendered when they realized resistance was futile. The survivors are currently being held at human facilities, where they're receiving education about alternative career paths. Zekmon stared at the reports in growing horror. How? How did you coordinate such an operation across galactic distances? Morrison smiled. Hi, Predator. You made the same mistake that every apex predator makes eventually. You assumed that being at the top of the food chain meant you were the smartest thing in the galaxy. You never bothered to study your prey carefully enough to understand what they were capable of. The tactical display zoomed in on Earth's solar system, showing the massive infrastructure that the Krillians had missed during their initial assessment. Orbital foundries that could build ships faster than biogardens could grow them. Quantum communication networks that allowed instantaneous coordination across galactic distances. Research facilities where former victims of Krillian hunts worked alongside human scientists to develop new technologies. You see, Morrison continued, while you were busy being perfect predators, we were busy building a civilization based on cooperation instead of domination. When your victims started arriving in our space 30 years ago, they didn't just tell